Queen Zara stood on the crystal balcony of her palace, watching 3 suns set over the capital city of Velthros. The sky turned purple and gold as millions of lights began to twinkle across the vast metropolis below. 12 star systems bowed to her will. Thousands of warships carried her banner across the galaxy. Yet tonight, she felt strangely alone. "Your Majesty," came a voice behind her. Admiral Crix, her most trusted military commander, approached with careful steps. His blue skin gleamed in the fading light, and his 4 arms carried data tablets filled with reports. "The human delegation has arrived." Zara turned, her silver robes flowing like liquid metal. As Queen of the Velthran Empire, she had met ambassadors from hundreds of species. Most came seeking favor, trade agreements, or military protection. The humans were different. They came offering something no one had ever offered her before: true peace. "Are they what you expected?" she asked. Crix hesitated. His large black eyes blinked twice, a sign he was choosing his words carefully. "They are smaller than our intelligence report suggested, Your Majesty. And they seem very fragile. I wonder how such beings survived long enough to develop space travel." The human homeworld called Earth sat on the far edge of known space. Until recently, most civilizations believed it was uninhabited. The humans had appeared seemingly overnight, with ships that looked primitive but somehow worked as well as anything the advanced races could build. Their first contact message was simple: "We come in peace, seeking friendship with all who wish it." "Have them brought to the main audience chamber," Zara commanded. "I will meet with them myself." "Your Majesty, perhaps it would be wiser to send Ambassador Thale first. We know very little about these creatures. They might be dangerous." Zara laughed, a sound like silver bells in the wind. "Admiral, our intelligence reports say they have no weapons of mass destruction, no planet-killing technology, and ships barely capable of faster-than-light travel. What danger could they possibly present to the most powerful empire in the galaxy?" An hour later, Zara sat on her throne in the grand audience chamber. The room could hold 1,000 beings, with pillars of pure diamond reaching up to a ceiling painted with the history of Velthran conquest. Representatives from dozens of allied species filled the space, all curious to see the mysterious humans. The massive doors opened with a deep rumble. A small group of beings walked inside, and Zara immediately understood why Admiral Crix had seemed concerned. The humans were indeed much smaller than expected, barely reaching the chest height of an average Velthran. Their pale pink skin looked soft and vulnerable. They wore simple dark clothing that seemed more functional than impressive. But something about their leader caught Zara's attention. He walked with quiet confidence, his eyes taking in every detail of the room without seeming nervous or overwhelmed. While the other humans stayed close together, he moved slightly ahead, clearly protective of his team even in this peaceful setting. "Your Majesty," the human leader said, stopping at the proper distance and offering a respectful bow. "I am David Chen, speaking for the United Earth Alliance. We are honored by your welcome." His voice was calm and steady, with none of the fear or excessive flattery that usually marked first meetings with new species. Zara found herself leaning forward slightly, intrigued. "Ambassador David," she replied, using the human title structure she had studied. "Your people have traveled far to reach our space. What brings you to the Velthran Empire?" "We come seeking friendship, Your Majesty. Humanity has watched the stars for thousands of years, dreaming of the day we might meet others among them. Now that dream has come true, and we hope to learn from older, wiser civilizations like yours." There was something refreshing about his directness. Most ambassadors spent hours on elaborate speeches filled with hidden meanings and political games. David spoke like someone genuinely interested in peaceful contact. "And what does humanity offer in return for this friendship?" Zara asked. David smiled, and Zara noticed how the expression transformed his entire face. "We offer what we have always given freely, our loyalty to those who treat us well, our creativity in solving problems, and our willingness to stand beside our friends in both good times and difficult ones." The audience murmured among themselves. Several alien ambassadors laughed quietly at what they saw as naive promises from a primitive species. Zara silenced them with a look. Pretty words, human. But the galaxy is not a kind place. Loyalty and creativity mean little when faced with plasma cannons and antimatter bombs. Your Majesty speaks wisely, David replied. We are indeed new to the greater galaxy, and we have much to learn about the challenges you face. Perhaps that is why we might be useful allies. Sometimes fresh eyes can see solutions that experience has taught others to overlook. Over the following days, Zara met frequently with the human delegation. David proved to be an excellent diplomat, quick to understand Velthran customs and eager to find common ground between their species. He asked thoughtful questions about Velthran history and culture, and his genuine curiosity was flattering. More interesting was his behavior outside formal meetings. While other ambassadors spent their free time trying to gather intelligence or build secret alliances, David explored the palace gardens, studied Velthran art, and spent hours learning their language from patient tutors. He seemed more interested in understanding her people than in gaining advantage over them. He is quite different from what I expected, Zara confided to her personal advisor, Lady Vera, as they walked through the royal gardens one evening. Different how, Your Majesty? Most ambassadors are either afraid of our power or plotting to use it for themselves. David seems genuinely interested in building something positive between our peoples. Lady Vera, whose green skin marked her as a member of the ancient Zephyrian species, nodded thoughtfully. The humans do seem sincere in their peaceful intentions. Though I confess, I find their ambassador rather mysterious. Mysterious? He carries himself like a warrior, Your Majesty, despite his diplomatic role. Notice how he always positions himself between potential threats and his companions. Watch his eyes during meetings, they constantly scan for exits and defensive positions. These are not the habits of a simple diplomat. Zara considered this. She had noticed David's alertness, but had attributed it to natural caution in an unfamiliar environment. Now that Vera mentioned it, there was something almost predatory in the way he moved when he thought no one was watching. Their breakthrough came during a cultural exchange ceremony 3 weeks into the human visit. David had requested permission to demonstrate a human art form called poetry. Standing before the assembled court, he recited ancient verses from Earth about loss, hope, and the dream of finding others among the stars. We are not alone in the dark, he concluded, his voice carrying clearly through the great hall. We have found you, and in finding you, we have found ourselves. When he finished, the hall was silent for a long moment. Then Zara began to applaud, and the rest of the court followed. As David returned to his seat, their eyes met across the room, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with diplomacy. The courtship that followed was subtle but swift by galactic standards. Zara found excuses to spend time with David, showing him the best of Velthran culture while learning about human customs in return. He proved to be thoughtful and intelligent, with a quick wit that matched her own. Your Majesty seems quite taken with the human ambassador, Admiral Crix observed during a private military briefing. David is an interesting individual, Zara replied carefully. His people's perspective on interstellar relations could be valuable to us. Of course, Your Majesty. Though I hope you will forgive my concern. We know very little about human society or their true capabilities. This could be an elaborate deception. Zara's eyes flashed with warning. Are you questioning my judgment, Admiral? Never, Your Majesty. I merely suggest caution. The humans claim to seek only peace and friendship, but in my experience, species rarely develop space travel without also developing the capacity for war. Despite the Admiral's concerns, Zara's relationship with David continued to deepen. He was unlike any being she had ever met, strong without being aggressive, confident without being arrogant. When she announced their engagement 6 months after first contact, the reaction from her court was mixed at best. The Queen marries beneath herself, whispered Lord Drac, one of her cousin's supporters. A primitive from the edge of space, whose people have no military might or economic power. Others were more diplomatic but equally concerned. "Surely your majesty could find a more suitable consort among the established royal families," suggested Ambassador Thale. "The Andromedan prince or perhaps one of the Centauri lords." But Zara had made her decision. The wedding ceremony blended Velthran and human traditions, creating something beautiful and new. David adapted easily to his role as royal consort, learning court protocols while serving as cultural bridge between species. To most observers, he seemed content to remain in the background, supporting his wife's rule without seeking power for himself. He attended state functions with quiet dignity, offered thoughtful advice when asked, and won over many skeptics with his genuine kindness and obvious devotion to Zara. "The human knows his place," Admiral Crix admitted grudgingly. "He shows proper respect for Velthran's superiority and does not try to interfere in military matters." If Zara noticed the faint condescension in such comments, she said nothing. David himself seemed unbothered by the court's attitude toward him. He spent his days studying Velthran law and history, improving his language skills, and quietly observing everything around him. But late at night, when they were alone in their private chambers, Zara sometimes caught glimpses of something else in her husband's eyes, a depth of experience that seemed far older than his apparent age, and a watchful awareness that never quite relaxed even in their most intimate moments. "What are you thinking about?" she asked one evening as they stood together on their private balcony, watching the stars. David was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant points of light. "I was thinking about how beautiful it is here, and how grateful I am for the chance to share it with you." It was a diplomatic answer, kind and romantic but revealing little about his true thoughts. Zara was beginning to understand that her husband was far more complex than he allowed most people to see. The first real test of their marriage came 8 months after the wedding, when pirates began attacking Velthran trade convoys near the Outer Rim territories. The emergency alarm echoed through the palace corridors like a wounded beast. Queen Zara rushed toward the command center, her silver robes flowing behind her as guards fell into formation around her. Admiral Crix met her at the entrance, his 4 arms juggling multiple data tablets while his expression showed barely controlled panic. "Report," Zara commanded as they entered the war room. The massive holographic display showed a 3-dimensional map of Velthran space, with red warning indicators flashing near the outer rim. "Pirates, Your Majesty," Crix said, his voice tight with anger. "A convoy of 12 trade ships was attacked 3 hours ago near the Kepler station. The merchant vessels were completely destroyed. No survivors." Zara studied the display, noting the location of the attack. The Outer Rim had always been dangerous, but never had pirates been bold enough to completely annihilate a Velthran convoy. "How many ships in the pirate fleet?" "Our long-range sensors detected at least 30 vessels, possibly more. They appeared to have new technology, weapons that cut through our standard shields like they were not there." The war room fell silent. Velthran shields were considered the strongest in the galaxy. If pirates had found a way to defeat them easily, it changed everything. "Assemble the 3rd Fleet," Zara ordered. "We leave for the Outer Rim in 2 hours." "Your Majesty," Admiral Crix hesitated. "Perhaps it would be wiser to send a fleet without you. If these pirates have new weapons." "I will not hide in my palace while our people are murdered," Zara cut him off. "The 3rd Fleet launches with me aboard the flagship." As the command staff rushed to prepare for departure, David appeared at Zara's side. He had been attending a cultural meeting with Earth's new colonial representatives when the alarm sounded. "I heard about the attack," he said quietly. "How can I help?" Several officers glanced at him with barely hidden amusement. The idea of the gentle human consort helping with military operations seemed absurd to them. "You can help by staying safe," Zara replied, though not unkindly. "This is a military operation. You are not trained for combat." David nodded, accepting her decision without argument. But Zara noticed something strange in his eyes, not fear or disappointment, but what looked almost like regret. "May I at least accompany the fleet as an observer?" "I promise to stay out of the way." Admiral Crix started to object, but Zara raised her hand. Very well. You may observe from the command bridge of the flagship. But you will follow all safety protocols. 2 hours later, the Third Fleet departed for the Outer Rim. 25 of the Empire's most advanced warships, including the massive flagship Thunder of Velthros, jumped into hyperspace toward the last known location of the pirate attack. The journey took 6 hours. During that time, David remained quietly on the bridge, watching the crew work and asking occasional questions about ship operations. Most of the officers ignored him, focused on their preparations for battle. "Contact ahead," reported the sensor officer as they dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler Station. "Multiple ships, configuration unknown." The main display lit up with tactical information. 43 pirate vessels surrounded the trading station, which showed signs of recent battle damage. The pirate ships were unlike anything in Velthran military databases, sleek, angular designs that seemed to absorb sensor readings rather than reflect them. "They knew we were coming," Admiral Crix observed. "Look at their formation. They are positioned to intercept us." "Open communication channels," Zara commanded. The main screen shifted to show a figure in dark armor with a face hidden behind a metallic mask. When it spoke, the voice was artificially modified and impossible to identify by species. "Queen Zara of the Velthrans," the pirate leader said. "How thoughtful of you to deliver your finest ships directly to us. Surrender now and we might allow your crews to live as slaves. You dare threaten the Velthran Empire?" Zara's voice carried the authority of 12 star systems. "Surrender immediately and you will be granted fair trials before your executions." The pirate leader laughed, a harsh mechanical sound. "Your empire ends today, Queen. Witness the dawn of a new age." The communication cut off, and immediately the pirate fleet opened fire. But these were not the crude plasma cannons typically used by raiders. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the pirate ships, striking Velthran vessels with devastating accuracy. "Shields holding at 60%, reported the defensive officer, alarm clear in his voice. "But those weapons are cutting through our armor like it does not exist." The battle quickly turned desperate. Velthran ships, designed to dominate any opponent through superior technology and firepower, found themselves outmatched by weapons they did not understand. Within minutes, 3 destroyers were heavily damaged and falling back. "They are using some kind of quantum disruptor," Admiral Crix reported. "Our shields cannot adapt fast enough to compensate." "All ships, fall back to defensive formation," Zara commanded. But even as she gave the order, she knew they were in serious trouble. The pirates had clearly planned this ambush carefully, using technology that gave them a decisive advantage. "Your Majesty," the communication officer called out. "The pirates are launching boarding pods at our position." Through the bridge viewports, Zara could see dozens of small craft racing toward the flagship. The Thunder of Velthros was the largest and most valuable target in the fleet, capturing it would give the pirates an incredible prize. "Defensive teams to all entry points," Admiral Crix barked into his communicator. "Prepare for boarding action." The flagship shuddered as the first boarding pods attached to the hull. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as reports flooded in from throughout the ship. "Hull breaches on deck 7, 12, and 15, reported the damage control officer. "Enemy forces are cutting through our bulkheads. Security teams are engaging the intruders," Admiral Crix added. "But they have some kind of powered armor that our weapons barely scratch." David stepped forward, his expression calm despite the chaos around them. "Your Majesty, may I ask how many crew members are aboard this ship?" "Nearly 3,000, Zara replied, wondering why he was asking such a question at this moment. "And how many security personnel?" 200, maybe 250, Admiral Crix answered impatiently. "Why does this matter now?" David was quiet for a moment, as if calculating something in his head. "Your Majesty, I request permission to assist with the ship's defense." Several bridge officers laughed despite the desperate situation. The idea of the quiet human diplomat fighting off armored pirates seemed ridiculous. David, you are not trained for this, Zara said gently. Please stay here where it is safe. Security Team 7 has fallen back to Deck 10, came a report over the communication system. We cannot hold them much longer. David's expression changed. The gentle, diplomatic mask seemed to slip away, replaced by something harder and far more dangerous. Your Majesty, with respect, you do not understand what I am trained for. Before anyone could respond, he moved to one of the bridge security panels and began typing rapidly. His fingers flew over the controls with practiced ease, accessing systems that should have required high-level security clearance. How does he know those access codes? Admiral Crix demanded. David ignored the question, studying the ship's internal layout on the security monitor. I need access to the maintenance shafts and emergency supply lockers. Also, I will need someone to monitor my progress through the internal sensor network. David, what are you planning? Zara asked, though part of her was beginning to suspect she might not want to know the answer. He turned to face her, and for the first time since she had known him, she saw something truly dangerous in his eyes. I am planning to save your ship, Your Majesty. But I need you to trust me. Another explosion rocked the flagship as more boarding pods attached to the hull. Emergency reports continued flooding in, the pirates were systematically overwhelming the ship's defenses. Deck 12 has fallen, came another report. They are advancing toward the main engine room. David looked at the tactical display, then back at Zara. Your Majesty, I swear to you that I will protect this ship and everyone on it. But I need to do this my way. Something in his voice, the absolute certainty and quiet authority, made Zara pause. This was not the same man who had spent months learning court protocols and writing poetry. This was someone else entirely. Do it, she said. David nodded once, then disappeared through a maintenance hatch near the rear of the bridge. Admiral Crix immediately activated the internal sensor network to track his movements. He is moving through the maintenance shafts toward Deck 15, the sensor officer reported. He seems to know exactly where he is going. How is that possible? Admiral Crix muttered. He has only been on this ship for a few hours. What happened next defied everything the bridge crew thought they knew about humans. Watching through internal security cameras, they saw David emerge from a maintenance shaft directly behind a group of armored pirates. Moving with fluid precision, he disabled their weapons using techniques that seemed to turn their own technology against them. How did he do that? The tactical officer whispered. David disappeared back into the maintenance system, only to appear minutes later in a completely different section of the ship. This time he had somehow accessed an emergency supply locker and equipped himself with various tools and materials that he used to create improvised weapons and traps. He is using our own ship's systems as weapons, Admiral Crix observed with growing amazement. He turned the artificial gravity generators in that section into a weapon. The security cameras showed pirates in powered armor being slammed into bulkheads by sudden gravity shifts, their heavy armor becoming a liability instead of protection. Emergency blast doors sealed automatically, separating pirate groups and allowing David to deal with smaller numbers. Deck 15 is secure, came a report from the remaining security team. The intruders have been neutralized, but we do not know how. He is moving toward Deck 12 now, the sensor officer reported. But there are at least 30 pirates in that section. Through the cameras, they watched David study the ship's layout on a wall terminal, then disappear into what looked like an environmental control shaft. Minutes passed with no sign of him. Then the lights went out on Deck 12. In the darkness, emergency lighting cast strange shadows through the corridors. The pirates' thermal imaging systems began malfunctioning one by one, leaving them effectively blind. Strange sounds echoed through the ship, machinery activating in unexpected ways, air vents opening and closing, and the distant sound of metal being reshaped. What is he doing down there? Zara asked, transfixed by what she was seeing. I believe he is hunting, Admiral Crix replied quietly. When the lights came back on an hour later, Deck 12 was silent. The pirate boarding force had been completely eliminated, their advanced armor and weapons useless against tactics they had never encountered. David reappeared on the bridge through the same maintenance hatch he had used to leave. His clothes were torn and dirty, but he seemed completely uninjured. The gentle diplomat was gone, replaced by someone who moved with the confidence of a predator. "The ship is secure, Your Majesty," he reported calmly. "The remaining pirate vessels are withdrawing." Zara stared at her husband, seeing him clearly for the first time. "Who are you, David?" "Really?" He met her eyes steadily. "I am exactly who I told you I was, Your Majesty. I am a human who came seeking peace. But I am also something else." "What?" David was quiet for a long moment, looking around the bridge at all the stunned faces watching him. "I am someone who has learned that sometimes peace must be defended." The silence on the bridge stretched like a taut wire. Every officer stared at David as he stood calmly beside the tactical display, his torn clothing and dirty hands the only signs of the battle he had just won single-handedly. Queen Zara felt as if she were seeing her husband for the first time. "Clear the bridge," she commanded quietly. "All personnel except Admiral Crix, leave us." The bridge crew filed out reluctantly, casting curious glances back at the human who had just saved their ship. When the doors sealed, Zara turned to face David directly. "I want the truth," she said. "All of it." David nodded slowly, seeming to gather his thoughts. "The truth is complicated, Zara. I meant everything I said about seeking peace and friendship. But you are right to ask who I really am." Admiral Crix activated the privacy shields around their small group, ensuring their conversation could not be overheard or recorded. "Those were not the skills of a diplomat," he said bluntly. "No ambassador learns to turn a starship into a weapon." "You are correct," David replied. "Before I became an ambassador, I had a different role in human society." "What kind of role?" Zara asked, though something deep inside her already suspected she might not want to hear the answer. David walked to the main viewport, looking out at the retreating pirate ships. "In human space, I was known by another name. They called me the Ghost of Terra." Admiral Crix's 4 arms went rigid with shock. Even Zara, who had never heard the name before, could tell from his reaction that it meant something significant. "That is impossible," Crix whispered. "The Ghost of Terra is a legend. A story that human merchants tell to make themselves seem more dangerous than they really are." "What stories?" Zara demanded. Crix began pacing, his usual composure completely shattered. "Tales of a single human operative who ended the Proxima War by infiltrating a Centauri battle station and turning its own weapons against the fleet. Stories of someone who stopped the vegan slave trade by making their entire organization disappear in a single night. Rumors of a ghost who could walk through any defense, defeat any enemy, and vanish without a trace." David turned back to face them. "Those are not stories, Admiral. They are mission reports." Zara sank into the captain's chair, trying to process what she was hearing. "You are telling me that you, my gentle husband who writes poetry and tends gardens, are some kind of legendary warrior?" "I prefer to think of myself as a problem solver," David said with a slight smile. "But yes, I spent many years dealing with threats to human space and innocent people throughout the galaxy." "How many years?" Admiral Crix asked. 15 years of active service. I was part of a special unit called Terra Defense Force. Our job was to handle situations that conventional military forces could not resolve." Zara thought about all the months she had known David, all the quiet evenings they had spent together, all the diplomatic functions where he had seemed so peaceful and content. "Why did you never tell me?" David's expression grew serious. "Because that part of my life was over, or so I thought. When the human government asked me to lead the diplomatic mission to Velthron space, I saw it as a chance to build something positive instead of just destroying threats." "But you knew how to fight all along," Zara said. "When my people laughed at humans for being weak, when they called you soft and powerless, you said nothing. What would have been the point?" David asked. Fear is not a good foundation for friendship. I wanted your people to know humans as we really are, builders, dreamers, and loyal friends. Not as weapons. Admiral Crix had been studying his data tablets while they talked. Now he looked up with an expression of growing amazement. Your Majesty, I have been checking our intelligence files. If this human is truly the ghost of Terra, then the implications are staggering. Explain, Zara commanded. The ghost was credited with single-handedly ending 3 major conflicts in human space. Each time, impossibly dangerous situations were resolved with minimal loss of life and maximum effect on the enemy. But more importantly, every action was defensive in nature. David nodded. Humans do not seek conquest, Admiral. We seek survival and the protection of those we care about. But how? Zara asked. How does one person accomplish what entire fleets cannot? David was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Humans evolved on a world that tried to destroy them every single day. Earth is beautiful, but it is also incredibly dangerous. Natural disasters, predators, diseases, resource conflicts, everything on our planet was designed to eliminate weakness. He gestured toward the tactical display, which still showed the aftermath of the pirate battle. Most species in the galaxy developed in relatively safe environments. They built civilizations that relied on superior technology or overwhelming numbers. Humans learned to survive through adaptation and improvisation. I do not understand, Admiral Crix admitted. Look at what just happened, David explained. Your pirates had better weapons and armor than your security forces. In a direct fight, they should have won easily. But I did not fight them directly. I turned their advantages into weaknesses and used your own ship as my weapon. Zara began to understand. You used the artificial gravity to crush them. You turned off their thermal imaging by manipulating the ship's environmental systems. You made their advanced armor a liability instead of protection. Exactly. This is how humans think in combat. We do not try to overpower our enemies, we outthink them. Every environment becomes a potential weapon. Every system can be turned against those who rely on it too heavily. Admiral Crix looked thoughtful. This explains many things about human technology. Your ships are not as advanced as ours, but they are incredibly adaptable. Your weapons are simple but effective in any situation. We build things that work, not things that impress, David agreed. A human soldier with basic equipment and knowledge of the environment can often defeat an enemy with far superior technology. Over the following hours, as the Velthran fleet secured the area and tended to their wounded, word of what had happened began to spread. The story of how a single human had saved the flagship from 40 armed pirates traveled through the fleet, then to Velthran command, then throughout the Empire. But the real shock came when Admiral Crix shared his intelligence files about the ghost of Terra. Suddenly, military commanders across the galaxy were re-examining every story they had heard about human capabilities. Your Majesty, reported the fleet communication officer, we are receiving messages from across the Empire. Military intelligence wants to debrief the human immediately. The Royal Council demands an emergency session. And we have received formal inquiries from 12 other species about human military potential. Zara looked at David, who seemed completely calm despite the growing storm around them. How do you want to handle this? The truth is already spreading, he replied. We might as well get ahead of it. But I want to make one thing very clear to everyone who asks. What is that? David's expression grew serious. I did not become the ghost of Terra because I enjoyed fighting. I did it because sometimes good people need protection from those who would harm them. Everything I learned, every skill I developed, was for the purpose of defending the innocent and preserving peace. And now? Zara asked. He smiled and reached for her hand. Now I have found something worth protecting that does not require violence. I have found love, friendship, and the hope of building something better than what came before. The political implications of David's revelation rippled across the galaxy over the following weeks. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive and weak suddenly found themselves re-evaluating everything they thought they knew. Pirates and raiders began avoiding human space entirely, spreading stories of impossibly dangerous defenders who could turn any environment into a trap. Several aggressive species quietly cancelled invasion plans against Earth colonies, deciding that the risk was too great. But perhaps more importantly, peaceful species began to see humans as valuable allies. The knowledge that humanity possessed incredible defensive capabilities, but chose to use them only to protect others, made human friendship highly desirable. The Andromedan Council has requested a formal alliance, Admiral Crix reported during a weekly briefing. The Zephyrian Republic wants to establish cultural exchange programs. Even the usually hostile Rigel Confederacy has sent peace overtures. And how has Earth responded? Zara asked. David, who now sat openly at these military briefings as the Queen's consort and advisor, smiled slightly. The same way we always respond to those who approach us in peace. We welcome them as friends and offer whatever help we can provide. Even though they once looked down on humans as inferior. Especially then, David replied. Forgiveness and friendship are harder to achieve than victory in battle, but they last much longer. As months passed, Zara watched her husband settle into his new role as both consort and unofficial military advisor. He never sought to command Velthran forces or impose human tactics on their military. Instead, he served as a teacher and consultant, helping them understand how to defend against unconventional threats. You could have ruled an empire, Zara told him one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. With your skills and knowledge, you could have conquered half the galaxy if you had wanted to. David stopped beside a fountain where earth flowers now grew alongside Velthran crystal blooms. But why would I want to? Conquest brings only fear and resentment. This is better. This? He gestured around them at the peaceful garden, then took her hands in his. This. A home where different species can grow together. Friends instead of subjects. Love instead of fear. Zara smiled, finally understanding what made humans truly different from other species in the galaxy. Your greatest victory was not any battle you won as the ghost of Terra. No. Your greatest victory was convincing the most powerful being in the galaxy to trust you with her heart. David laughed, the sound carrying across the garden like music. In that case, I hope I get to keep winning that victory for many years to come. Above them, the 3 suns of Velthros set in a blaze of gold and purple, while ships from a dozen different worlds came and went in peace from the orbital stations. In choosing love over conquest, humanity had found something far more valuable than military dominance. They had found their place as protectors and friends in a galaxy that desperately needed both. And in the royal gardens of the most powerful empire in known space, a legendary warrior tended flowers and wrote poetry, proving that the greatest strength was knowing when not to use the power you possessed.